Makeup by Ariel went live the other day, and you guys, your girl took notes. I took 3 pages worth, and we're gonna get into some of these tips. The first step is to apply a really thin layer of orange color corrector around your mouth. He says this is not to conceal, this is just to add color and warmth to the area so that everything looks smooth and it doesn't look gray. This is going to be really good for anyone who does have discoloration. So if you do not have discoloration, you don't have to do this step. You can just skip. He then mixes 2 foundations, one that's kind of more sheer medium coverage and the other one is like super full coverage. And he applies it to like the center of his face. Now you're going to take whatever's remaining on your brush and apply it to your forehead. He takes a concealer that's not too far off from his skin tone and he applies it under his eyes. He uses a small fluffy brush to blend out that concealer. He goes in with a cream bronzer and creates somewhat of a staircase. This is a very natural shade for me. It does do something, trust. He blends out the cream bronzer using his A58 brush and he just pats it in. He takes a sponge and he cuts underneath his contour. He applies concealer underneath his eyes and his nose, as well as his forehead. So he goes in with a sponge to blend this all out. He does everything except for the nose. He leaves that alone. He applies a powder blush onto his unset wet skin using his brush. You're going to apply it to the highest point of your cheekbone. Really concentrate it there and then lightly bring it towards the apple of your cheek for that baby doll effect. It's safe to say he went in using quite a bit because blush is always the first thing to disappear off of our faces. Now that this nose highlight has been sitting on our face for a while, he goes in with a sponge and he blends it out. Basically what this is going to do is leave a guideline to let us know where to contour. He goes into a matchstick and he goes ahead and follows that natural line on his nose to contour it. And he really takes his time doing this. He sets his under eye using a sponge and a press powder. You're gonna just go over all of the highlighted areas. Going to set the forehead. He also takes this underneath his cheek and just lightly tapping it into the skin. He applies another pressed powder foundation onto his face, but this time it's in his skin tone, and he's just pressing this on the perimeter of his face to make sure that everything is set. He also takes this on his neck as well. Don't be afraid to apply this on top of the blush. I noticed that's what he did. We're going back into that blush and reinforcing it before we bake with some loose powder. Now he bakes with a loose setting powder and he's going to cut out that nose contour. He more so bakes the side of his nose. He really does press the powder in everywhere else. Just make sure you get that nose snatched with the baking. He's going to cut underneath, like where he reverse contoured, and he's going to not bring it too far to the lips. You do not want to bring it that far out. We are looking snatched. Oh my gosh. He goes back in with that skin tone powder and he resets his perimeter again. He takes 2 bronzers and he applies a light dusting of those shades. So basically you need a warmer one and a less warmer one and you'll get your perfect bronzer shade. He takes the bronzer on his eye and he brings it out into that into the contoured area, and then he also goes underneath the eye as well with the bronzer. If you think that your under eye is not bright enough at this point, you can go in with another brightening powder. He went in using a MAC Studio Fix powder to brighten it. I think my under eyes are pretty bright because the next step we're going to do is going to make it even brighter, so I think I'm good right here. He applies a peach eyeshadow underneath his eye to further color correct, but I'm going to be going in with this shade from the Dragon Beauty palette and a nice fluffy brush. That is so pretty. He takes a more white, yellowy, golden beigey shade and applies this on the forehead and the chin. Before he lines his lip, he reinforces that nose contour with more of that loose powder. Let's line our lips. He goes over his Cupid's bow. And then he basically lines where his chin is. So you see, like, that's kind of like the natural line. He kind of goes under it some. And it kind of makes the lips look fuller. I'm gonna stop here because everything that's gonna come after this is my own technique. I have a detailed video of like a lip combo very similar to the one that he did on his live already on my page, so go find that. I mainly just wanted you guys to see how he lines his lip and just how like Bratz doll and like full it makes you. So yeah, goes back in with a blush, but this is a different shade. This is a lighter shade, taking the same brush, focusing it on the high points of the cheeks and bringing it into the apple. It's time to dust off this bake. He goes in with a highlighter from ABH. This one's the Omrazy one. He used So Hollywood, but that one's discontinued. Same with this one. This one's discontinued, but I have this one in my collection. He takes a small detailed brush. He applies it to the inner part of his eye. Do you see what a difference that made? This is the final look. Let me know what you guys think and if you guys are going to be trying this.